So it's about 6 AM in the morning. We're down on a cliff face area. I mean, we've come around on a path. We haven't had to climb down the cliff, although you can climb down cliffs. And we're going to be crab wheeling, or attempting to. Now, some of you are going to be asking, what is crab wheeling? Well, that's a crab wheel, a bit like a drop net, just a bit shallower. Now, normally you'd use an old bicycle wheel or something like that. This is just a bit of metal. And then you'd take your spokes out, obviously, then put the string through the holes and attach the net. Alternatively, if you put the string through the holes and go all the way around, leaving loops, then tie onto each loop, you can eventually make your own net, which is what we used to do as kids. We used to get some old bicycles. We used to do this years ago. You don't see so many people doing this anymore. But years ago, you used to get quite a few people down on the rocks with these. Then what you do is you get yourself a fish head, or you can collect limpets or something. You don't need a fish head. And then stick the fish head into the net, which is what I'm going to do right now. So just have a piece of wire in your net, just in the center. Like so. So it's like this. And then you want to throw this into the sea. Now you want to go to a deep water mark. You can go off piers, anywhere like that. What crabs you'll catch is dependent on your area. Here today we hope to catch spider crabs. This is what they traditionally go for. You can catch shankers. I have caught lobsters before, but being that they're mostly nocturnal, the lobsters and that, you don't tend to see a lot, and you need older bait. Fresh bait isn't necessarily good for lobster, although it's very good for spider crabs. So then what you do is you've got to unwind this, then you just stick this stick in a rock somewhere so you don't lose your line, obviously. Best thing to start with, hold on to it, throw it into the sea. Sometimes let's give it a tug to straighten the wheel up. Then you just find yourself a slot somewhere where you can just wedge your stick in. That'll do. The idea with the stick as well, if you use a wooden stick, if you drop it in the water it'll float and you can always get it back. Then what you do is you wait about 15 minutes and then we'll see if we've caught anything in it. And while we're waiting, I brought this as well, so we'll try some fishing. See if there's anything out there. It's a little bit early in the year, but you never know. There's sometimes a few bass or even the odd mackerel comes in. We'll see if we catch anything on this. And if you're not a big fan of fish, but you like crab, then you can always sit here texting if you like, if that's your thing. As you can see along this coast, there's various places you could fish off of. There's quite a few rocks in the first bit, maybe not so good, but then you get to that end point there. I believe you can actually get onto that. Nice platform there to fish off of. Good place to throw crab wheels, and we're not in the best area, but if I'd gone there I'd have had to come down that cliff, which is about it's about 200 feet I suppose. Yeah, 250, something like that. I know our highest cliffs around here are about 300, so years ago I'd have been down there like a shot. I'd have been on the furthest, deepest possible spot I could get to. But when you're carrying cameras and things and extra bits and pieces, it's always a bit of a pain having to trek down these places. Like I was saying, we used to do this crab wheeling years ago. You can take more than one wheel with you if you want. We used to take 2 or 3 sometimes, and then just pull one every 5 minutes over a 15-minute period. Obviously, if you put the crab wheels down, if you've got a lot of crab in the area, then pull it up every 5 minutes by all means. If you don't have many, just leave it down for 30 minutes. It's entirely up to you from how you're catching. Now, the last time I actually came down here, I had about 3 or 4. This is a couple of years ago. and one of them was 5.5 pounds, so it was a good crab. But like I say, it's very temperamental here, and the crabs have got to be in this area. The crabs might be at the other end of the island, or you know, over by that rock over there, and not here. That can happen as well. But we're about to find out, because the wheels have now been down for, it's about 15 minutes, maybe a little less, but it's the first lift, so we'll have a look. Not a sausage. But we'll try again. Right, so before I moved the wheel down to there, because we don't have much luck on the other side, so I've moved it a bit. It can't really move too many places here. There's a reef that goes out, but you get cut off if you're not careful. It's quite a jump across the gully as well, so we'll see. If we don't get anything here, I'll move off to somewhere else. I don't know if it'll be today, but I'll try somewhere else, and then I'll put that up when we actually catch something. That's the trouble with spider crabs, they do move around a lot, and sometimes you just go to an area, you just don't get them. Another year there'll be hundreds there. In fact, years ago you used to be able to look over the sides and see them clinging to the rocks on big low tides, but haven't seen that for a few years. Although I do know there's some have arrived. Whether there's any in this area is something else, but let's go and find out. There you go. Not a big one, but a spider. So it's only small, it's a male, you can tell by the claws. It doesn't have the big round dish thing underneath the crab. I've forgotten the name of it at the moment. It just goes to show that you can catch them in those wheels. Now I know this is only a small one. Sometimes you'll get like, you can get, I don't know, half a dozen in a wheel. The advantage with a wheel actually is you can get bigger ones in the wheel than you'll get in crab pots, purely because they can't fit in the pots, some of the real monsters. And the biggest spider I've ever had is 6.5 pounds. This is probably a pound. So a 6.5 pounder, well, its shell is bigger than this whole crab. It's like that, it's huge. So, and its legs were actually hanging over the wheel. It was that big. But that was years ago. I'd say our biggest I've had down here is 5.5, but I've only been here a couple of times. It's just a nice easy spot to get to, so you know, it was worth going to. Anyway, I'm going to pop this chap back. I'm actually going to throw him over the other side, away from the wheel. I don't want to put him back straight on the bait, so. And we'll leave the wheel down and we'll see if we can get another one. So I'll probably do another video in the future on crab wheeling. we only managed to pick up one crab today, but that's spider's few. They do move around a lot, and they only come for a couple of months to where I fish anyway, and then they move off. So yeah, it's pretty much luck of the draw. Some days you'll go down there and there'll be 20-30 crabs you'll catch. Other days you'll go down, catch nothing. That's just the way it goes. So I thought we'd take a closer look at the crab wheel. This one isn't actually a wheel, well, it's a wheel, it's a rim. It's just a bit of sheet metal I had galvanised. It was like off some ducting, which I just folded around and bolted together to make a wheel. It's actually bigger than, well, not bigger, but on the large side of a bike wheel it would be pretty big, this one. Now, the way you used to make them was actually using a bicycle wheel, and you would take the spokes out, just so you got the rim, then thread string through where the spokes were originally, through all the holes. That protects your string from when you drag it up the side of the rocks. This one's obviously just wrapped around, but like I say, I don't use it much. It gets used now and again, more for fun these days. But when I was a kid, we used to do this all the time. This is like old traditional fishing. How old or far back this goes with the wheel, I don't know. I mean, many years ago they might have made them out of wicker, who knows. But the idea is, like I say, you put a bit of bait in the middle with a bit of wire, the crab walks in, you're obviously just leaving it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you want, and you pull the wheel up and hopefully you've got a nice big crab sitting on your wheel. So anyway, I thought I'd show you a bit more because people are bound to ask me. So like I say, if you get a bicycle wheel, normally you'd have like, along the edge there, you'd have holes that you could thread stringing out. You could actually make the netting just from string. If you put loops through each of the holes and then go around the circle, around the whole thing, and then as you come back to the start, go on to the first loop you put in, and again keep going through all the loops. Keep doing that, and eventually you'll build up yourself some net. Or you can just do it like I've done, a bit of crab pot net. Now you can actually use onion sacks. You can use any old netting you can get your hands on. The trouble with onion sacks is you get more drag, and the crab can walk on it easier. If you have it like this, the legs tend to drop through easier, and they don't tend to be able to walk out the wheel so easy. If you tip your wheel on a rock or anything like that, they tend to stay in better. So this is how I do mine normally these days. Like I said, there's a bit of old crab pot net, and you can find this some fishermen, or you can even buy it new if you want, but I would just use old stuff that's already sort of fairly soft. You'll see here you've got 3 strings. Now these strings, don't make them too long, because if you make them too high, like you get on some drop nets, when you pull up you could almost flick the crab out the wheel if they're too long. So keep them fairly short. You can almost have them like that if you like, but it just means if you just have them slightly up, it just keeps the wheel nice and stable as it pulls up through the water. And obviously when you pull these up, pull them up as fast as you can. That way you'll keep anything in the net. Plus if you do get a lobster in here, which does happen, you'll keep water pressure against it, or keep it in the bottom of the net. So, and then you just put the string onto a bit of wood, you tie it on and wrap it around a piece of wood, and that piece of wood you can wedge it into crevices in the rocks, so when you throw your wheel out you don't lose your stick if you run out of line, or if you get a knot or something. And then then you just tuck it in between the net like that for carrying purposes, so you can carry it nice and easy like that. And you can even put this, if you put a bungee strap across it, you can put it across your back if you're climbing down any rocks or cliffs, to make life a bit easier. But like I say, we used to do this as children years ago. Well, there was a lot of people who used to do it. You know, you go down the rocks, there's one place that was called the Crab Wells. A lot of people don't even know where that is these days. They've never even heard of it. But that's obviously the sign of the times. Years ago everybody knew where the Crab Wells was. It's where everybody went crabbing. So as fate would have it, my neighbour was actually throwing out some mountain bikes. So I actually took one of the wheels and thought, well, I'll show you how we used to do these years ago. Now as you can see, this is just a netting needle. You don't need a netting needle, you can just use a bit of wood, or you can just use a bit of string and just keep tying extra bits on each time. Or you can just thread it through if you want to do it the long way with a long piece of string. It's entirely up to you. But you see here, this is the wheel, and you can see on the wheel that I've actually gone around once. You go in and out through here, through there, all the way around to start with, and then you tie a knot joining the two ends together, and then what you do is you start going through each loop. Now leave yourself enough slack. Don't make this tight. Make it loose, because you need to be able to push this through these here. So make sure you've got at least some slack. And then you just go around. You just literally, like we've got here, I've carried on. You go around the whole thing, and then when you come back to the next loop, each loop, you just literally tie a single little knot like that. Literally like that. So you've got another loop, and you're slowly building up a net basically. You can do this with any kind of string really. I use this one. This is more like they use for crab pot like string. It's a thin one. Do the same again there. And like I say, leave yourself a little bit of slack. Depending on the size of the net you want, you can make it smaller or you can make it bigger. For spider crabs, you don't really need it that small, but if you're going for lobster, you might want to make them a little bit smaller just to stop the lobsters falling through. And basically, I'll just keep going around that on every loop, and then once we get round back to the start again, we'll go on the loops we've just made, and you just keep doing that till you meet up. Now, obviously, you just keep adding loops to make it a little bit looser for the centre. So you've got in the end, you've got yourself your drop net, or your, the net hanging down, so there's a bit of slack. But I mean, with this, the crab's legs will fall through the holes, and they get caught in it as you pull it up. But I'll be back when I've finished. It won't take me long just to quickly net this up, and then we'll see the finished item. Right, well there you go, one finished crab wheel. Got the 3 strings. You can put 4 if you like, but I always just put 3. Just to a loop, and you can tie your main string or rope on there. Just make sure you got a piece of wire in the bottom. Put your bait on. And these strings on the end, when you put these on, just go through the hole so it doesn't slide. Right, well I'll probably make another video sometime. We'll actually may take this down and use it some. I might take it off to the local breakwater or pier, see if we can catch a few crabs one day. And we'll see how this one works out. It's a bit smaller than the other one, but it doesn't really matter, they still work fine. And like I say, you can even just use them as a drop net for landing your fish if you want. But it's a very cheap way. All you need is a ball of string, a wheel rim, and a bit of wire if you use it for crabs. If not, you don't even need that. Just make sure your string that you use to the surface or rope is stronger than these. Then if you have to snap it, if it snags, it'll snap one and it will pull up sideways, which will free it usually. And there you have it.